You may have noticed that there's a lot of discussion today about what marriage is. The lines are drawn in the sand. Some accept gay marriage, while others believe in so-called traditional marriage. Well, I don't argue for traditional marriage, and I'm going to tell you why. In 2015, the United States Supreme Court decided in the Obergefell v. Hodges case that states should not be able to prohibit practicing homosexuals from marrying each other. Some of you may have celebrated this decision, while others of you may have been disgusted by it. We already had differences of opinion over the gay marriage versus traditional marriage debate, and the Supreme Court's decision only entrenched each group further in their beliefs. So, which side is right? In my opinion, neither. I definitely do not accept gay marriage, but neither do I argue for traditional marriage. Now let me clarify what I mean. For much of my childhood, I believed that riding motorcycles was a sin. My mother's greatest fear was that one of her 6 children might die an early death, so she condemned those two-wheeled death traps every chance she could get. And now in her defense, she never actually said that riding them was a sin. I just assumed it. Imagine my shock then when one day I saw my pastor had left his garage door open and there was a motorcycle inside. A pastor with a motorcycle? How could it be? As a child, this revelation shook me to my core. I had developed a certain belief in my head. Motorcycles were bad. That experience, however, caused me to think, maybe what I had assumed wasn't true. Maybe motorcycles were okay. Maybe my opinions needed some adjustment. I eventually concluded that it was not a sin to ride a motorcycle. My experience does more than prove the immaturity of adolescent thinking. It reveals a deeper truth about humanity. Sometimes we hold tightly to certain beliefs just because they have been integrated into our personal traditions. When confronted with a better idea, we modify our beliefs. That's where marriage enters the discussion. The phrase traditional marriage refers to the marriage of one man and one woman. It stands in direct opposition to the union of 2 men or 2 women. Therefore, many of the arguments we've been hearing lately either defend or oppose traditional marriage. As I listen to advocates of traditional marriage, I notice a fatal flaw in their argument. They defend one man, one woman marriage because that's how marriage has always been defined. It's worked well for thousands of years, so why change it? In other words, they support traditional marriage because it is traditional. Well, this approach is untenable for several reasons. First, homosexual marriage seems to work for many people. Second, the gay lifestyle is not new. It's been around for thousands of years. Third, when homosexual marriage has been the accepted norm for a couple hundred years, it will also be considered traditional. Anything done long enough will become traditional. Therefore, the argument for traditional marriage cannot be founded on the fact that it is traditional. It needs to have some other basis. But what other basis is there? The only way that any type of marriage can be defended is by going back to the source. Who or what originally defined marriage and what is its definition? Marriage was instituted at the beginning of time. God formed a man and seeing that he was alone, created a woman. Bringing them together, God gave them the first marriage pronouncement. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. God, therefore, established marriage as a union between one man and one woman. Thousands of years later, when some folks confronted Jesus about his opinions of marriage, he rejected all the traditions that had been formed over the years and went straight back to the beginning. He quoted God's original pronouncement as given in the book of Genesis. And this is what he said. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then, they are no longer 2, but one flesh. We should do the same. If we argue for traditional marriage simply because it's traditional, we'll find ourselves at an impasse. Traditions change as people and culture change. God's definition of marriage, however, does not change. That is why I do not argue for traditional marriage. Instead, I argue for marriage as God defined it. It has been, is, and always will be the union of one man and one woman for life. And if the man and woman want to ride off into the sunset on a motorcycle, more power to them. Just please, don't tell Mom.